Okay, let's get going. We're live.
Right. Good morning from Oklahoma Nature Kindergarten. As you can see, I am here with my two hosts, and we have a guest, Teddy, who's coming today. We've just been making him a new jacket, which is looking very dapper, isn't he? So we'll put him to one side. So I have my co-host. Do you want to say who you are?
I'm James. And I'm Verity.
And today is their last day because we've been open as a hub throughout all of the pandemic, and now we're going to be moving off to have a bit of a break, and then we'll be reopening again for all the other children. So these guys are here as hosts today to talk to you a little bit more about flying. Now, we've got some friends who are putting up where they're from in our chat. You ready to listen? Here you go. So we've got folks from Oban today, from Orkney, Irvine. We've got people from Edinburgh, from Bala. People are talking about the weather. It's a funny old day here today because as I'm speaking, I don't know if you can see it, it's beginning to get brighter and brighter because it's supposed to be 26 degrees today. That's pretty amazing. So today we're thinking about creating our last type of things that fly. So we've been exploring all sorts of different things. If you remember, we've looked at parachutes and everything else. So let's have a look at the film, and then we'll come back to you and share with you some of our ideas. And don't forget, put your ideas into that box and let us know where you're from and what ideas you've got too. Let's get going and we'll watch the film together.
Welcome to session 5, where we've been exploring all about the idea of flying. Today, what we're going to do is take a step forward and look at a different thing that flies. But so far in this inquiry, we've been exploring parachutes. We've been thinking about helicopters. We've been looking at planes and how we can make them move. We've been thinking about superhero capes. And now what we're going to do is just take a look at a few photographs that some boys and girls have been very kind and sent them to me. So here we are, a selection of toys that are heroes, but we've also got some lovely images here of people who have thought about their dog or their soft toy and made them capes and clothes to celebrate how wonderful they think those animals are. We've been writing in our learning journals and our memory books, and so we've got lovely drawings, we've got lots of ideas. People have been talking about whether they're like Batman or Robin. We've been talking about what it would be like to be a human that could fly with a real cape. We were talking about how it is that animals, and dogs especially, seem to know when we're sad, and so that we wanted to see them as superheroes, not just because they rescue us from a mountain, but just because they're really good friends. So in our inquiry, looking at these things, these are some of the work that we've been learning. We've been thinking about our ideas about what it means to be a hero. We've been looking at animals that help us. We've been looking at people who help us, the National Health Service, those scientists who are trying to find us vaccines to nasty diseases and viruses. We've been thinking about the idea of power and how power can be for the good and power can be used for the not so good. We've been doing lots of designing, lots of making and using our creative skills in order to make our things that fly. That's only a few things that we've been learning about so far. There is so much more. And so today in our talking tub, what we're going to do is look at the idea of kites. And we're wondering about whether or not the shape of the kite helps it to fly. Now, this is a red kite, and it's a beautiful bird, and it's a real success story for us because there weren't many of them in Scotland, and now we see them quite often where we are around the Oklahoma Nature School and Nature Kindergarten. So a red kite is incredibly agile. That means it can move and twist and turn very easily because it has these incredible wings and it has that beautiful tail. And using those different things allows it to take the most of the air, to be able to move through the air in a very acrobatic way. This is another form of kite. These are kites that you would make and attach to a piece of string and then send up on a windy day to catch the wind. And if you've ever flown a kite, you'll know it can be quite tricky. Well, today we're going to have a look at making kites. I don't know if there's enough wind where you are at the moment, but if we make our kite today, we'll be all ready for the next time that breeze comes along. Some of us buy kites, and so we can buy those from shops and we can fold them down and take them out for a walk and use them when we're out in a bigger meadow like this, because when there's a lot of space around us, there tends to be a better breeze to fly your kite. We like making our kites, and so by using two very simple pieces of stick, like you can see here, and a bit of string that ties between those sticks, we can use very light materials like very thin tissue paper or the idea of an old newspaper that's very fine. And we can put glue on it and bend those over the edges where we've got that string and actually tie a string to where the two sticks cross and make ourselves a kite. When we fasten it all in, you can see that we can't see the string anymore. And so we bring it to that little point, and that's where we might attach a tail. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. So you're going to have to use what you call your fine motor control. That means using your fingers to try to tie knots, to try to thread things through, to try to stick things on. And it takes a bit of effort, but as we know, inquiry learning is all about having a go and not worrying if it's a bit tricky and not worrying if it doesn't work quite right the first time you have a go. When you look at some kites, they're called box kites, and that means that they're made out of three-dimensional shapes. This is a photograph looking up inside a box kite, and you can see how the person who made the kite has used those sticks to make the rectangles, and then they've attached all the rectangles together with longer sticks, and so they've ended up with what you call a cuboid, a long shape, a three-dimensional shape. Here is somebody from India who actually makes the most beautiful kites. You can see that behind is just made out of very thin paper, but it is beautiful in its patterns. So kite making and kite festivals are very common in certain parts of the world, and people put a lot of effort into making sure their kite is the most beautiful. Here's one. Can you spot what's on this one? This is the ladybird kite, and I can see the rainbow tail. Here's some that's just been used by putting different coloured bits of paper together. Very fine paper like tissue paper, but also using things like greaseproof if you've got that in your kitchen cupboard. That allows us to make some really interesting patterns and decorations on our kite. When we're making them, we might want to think not only about the body, the big bit of your kite, but also the tail. And so here you can see one long tail that's fringed at the end, but the other kite has got three little tails. So you can decide how many tails you put onto your kite. You might find it exciting to look at the natural world and take some inspiration from it. What do you think the person who made this kite was inspired by? I think it was the octopus. So we can see in his kite or their kite that they've made the two eyes and they've put on all those long feelers coming out of the bottom. So think about the animals that you really love. Think about the birds that you like to watch, and maybe you could be inspired by one of those when you make your kite today. Now you've got to think a little bit about where you're going to fly your kite. We said open meadows, going to the park is always a really good idea. You can see here that the wind is very strong. This little boy is by the seashore and the wind has come through and he's trying to hold on to his kite. You can see it's quite strong. In this photograph, there's maybe a little bit less wind. And so sometimes by running really fast, you can get your kite to go up off the ground and catch a little bit of air, to catch a thermal and rise up above the trees in the park where you might go. Here are some things that you might find useful to make a kite. Going to need some sticks, and thin, flexible sticks are the ones you want to find if you go for a walk today. Have a little look and see if you can find some paper you could recycle, like newspaper or greaseproof paper from your kitchen. You need some scissors, and you might want to use some felt pens and crayons if you decide to decorate it. If you want to put a tail on it and you want to have a string to hold on to it so it doesn't fly away, you're going to need to find some string or some wool, or maybe you've got something like fishing line in your house. Some masking tape is always handy because it dries and sticks immediately. But if you're a very patient person, you might be happy about using a glue, and that means you're going to have to wait a little bit more time for it to dry before you can go out and fly your kite. However it is that you decide to make your kite, I am sure you're going to be involved in problem solving. I am sure you're going to be involved in doing some research around amazing animals in the natural world. You're going to use your brain to be able to work out the design, and then you're going to be able to do and make it in real life. Take that kite outside and see if you can make it fly. Don't forget, do share your photos and your videos with me. You can tag me if your parents are on Twitter, that's V Nature School, or you can put them into the secure Facebook group, and then we'll be able to share those with each other when we meet in our community group. Take care. I look forward to seeing you in the virtual classroom.
Then, so fantastic, lots of exciting things on there. Let's think first of all about our inspiration from the natural world. So guys, any ideas what animal or creature inspires you from the natural world?
A fish.
A fish for you? Why a fish though, in terms of a kite? That doesn't make any sense, does it?
Yes, it does.
Tell me why then.
Because there's lots of different types of fish, and there's one fish that's called a flying fish, and it has these amazing, and like it has its fins, and they can work as gliders.
Okay.
So it glides. So
it comes
jumps out
and
glides.
Oh, fantastic!
But I'm just inspired by the fish because they just keep saying like the sky's blue, looks like the ocean. And then you see fishes in the ocean. So.
Okay, so the sky is blue and a fish could be flying up there. Why not? Everything is possible when you're the designer and the creator of your own kite.
Flying fish.
Flying fish for you. How about you, Bertie? What's your animal or a creature that you really are inspired by? Or is it going to be a mythical creature? Like a kraken?
Oh yeah, unicorn.
Wow. Or a unicorn, perhaps? What else might there be that you like, Bertie? A seal. What a lovely idea.
They're chunky.
They are quite chunky, but when you put them in the water, a seal can move really fast, can't they? So maybe having that streamlined effect with your kite might be a good idea. You like them because they're chunky. Hey, that's a good enough reason for me. So let's think a little bit then about the sticks, because we've picked up a couple of sticks, but I think we need to think about whether or not these are going to work. So tell me about the choice and selection. What are you looking for in your sticks?
You don't want it to be this long. You want it to be a bit smaller, or it might be a bit too heavy to take. Like when it's, I know if the wind's really strong, but it might just not go that high. It might just
Okay.
Just like above your head line.
All right. So we're worried about the weight of the stick. So that's something that James has brought up. What is it about your stick then? Do you think yours is better? Do you think yours is the right size? What do you think, Bertie?
This is probably the right size. You might want to get it like an inch a bit thicker, because if this one's too small, it'll just snap easily.
Does it? But when you're doing that there, it seemed to flex quite well.
Yeah. You have to also flex too.
Ah, so flexing is flexing is important, but not too much, because then it snaps. So you want to find something that gives you a bit of bend, so that when it's up there in the wind, it doesn't snap like ours just did. So we're going to need to find what? Deadwood or greenwood?
Green.
So finding greenwood, if you can, willow that maybe is growing in your garden, or hazel, things like that, they're really good for making kites because they're green and very flexible, even when they're dry. Okay, so in terms of colours, what's our thought then? You're going for seals? Are you going to do an abstract seal, or are you going to just do the greys and the browns that they would be normally?
Flying fish are like darkish bluish, or might go maybe a darkish blue.
You're thinking blues?
Or
All right, you're going for lightweight paper?
purple.
Okay, go for that. What about you, Bertie? Pardon?
Yes, albino seal.
Okay, so he's going to be doing an albino seal. He's going to do a white seal. So we'll look forward to coming back a little bit later on and seeing how they got on. Can we put this in? All right, I think we're ready to go out and do some playing. See you later, everybody. Bye.
Bye 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 bye.